You're listening to Mid-Morning in the Cities on Rewind 93.9 WYEC.
Rewind 93.9 WYEC, Mid-Morning in the Cities. I'm Sean Patrick. It's Mid-Morning at the Movies on every Friday. And of course, we're talking with Quad City Times film critic Linda Cook. Linda, good morning.
Hi.
Let's talk about the new movies this week. Two big ones, and a little one we've not seen yet, but we'll mention it later. Of course, the two big ones are X-Men Apocalypse and Alice Through the Looking Glass. Let's start with X-Men. The expectations on this film are extraordinarily low, and I think that really helped me in recommending it today.
Me too. And here's, you can tell when a movie is going to do good or do well. And you and I have talked about this before. When it opens on a Thursday night to a really big house. So when I walked in last night at 7 o'clock, I wasn't really expecting a lot of people, but there were a lot of people. And I could tell that the audience was appreciative. They had gone to some lengths to be there on a school night, as it were. And I think this movie is going to make a lot of money, and it deserves to.
It's a good movie, and for me, I found both X-Men The First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past to be extraordinarily overrated. This one is more coherent. It's the acting is much stronger. The story has a stronger perspective, and that really impressed me.
Me too. And now it's not Captain America: Civil War is one of the best movies of the year. And I keep going on about how smart the script is and how well directed it was and the wonderful character development. Is it up to the par of that? No, but it's solid. There's still character development. We see, and it wouldn't be fair to give away too much, but we see how some of these characters became who they are in a quasi-origin story. And I just like the way that the characters played off of each other and the way it's set up for what we already know will happen in the future.
We're talking with Linda Cook today, Mid-Morning at the Movies, here on Mid-Morning in the Cities on Rewind 93.9, and we'll continue this conversation after this. Mid-Morning in the Cities, presented by Curves Davenport on Rewind 93.9.
You're listening to Mid-Morning in the Cities on Rewind 93.9 WYEC.
Rewind 93.9 WYEC, Mid-Morning in the Cities, Mid-Morning at the Movies with me and Linda Cook from the Quad City Times, talking about X-Men Apocalypse right now. And Linda, if we wanted to, we could sit here and pull threads. I mean, there's Deus Ex TV at one point in the movie.
The greatest Sean Patrick quote of the year so far. That just cracked me up.
And there's also winning the fight via the power of heavy shouting. But other than that,
there is that.
but get beyond that. Get beyond the snarky stuff. This is still a pretty entertaining movie with Michael Fassbender genuinely having moments where he is acting. I mean, he is acting Shakespeare as Magneto.
Right. My quibble with it is, and it's one that Ebert. I've been reading a lot of Ebert's older reviews just recently for fun, and Ebert always said, there's the big secret that if one person uttered it, it would change the entire movie. And we have that going on here. That got on my nerves.
Yeah.
But, that really bothered me. And it's a weakness in many, many screenplays. However, the way the character developed to that point and what we know will happen, I almost excused it. I really thought this was high-quality work.
The other movie out this weekend is not quite high-quality work. I liked it more than you did, but neither one of us can recommend it. Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Wow. This is a lot of noise and a lot of color and not much plot, just a lot of running around. I see this a lot. You see this a lot, too, in movies aimed at children where the plot is weak and someone in the studio said, well, we'll just fill this in with a lot of action and color and maybe no one will notice. Well, maybe they will, too. So if you compare the audience numbers that we saw Thursday night, there were very few people in Alice Through the Looking Glass compared to the far superior X-Men movie. So that right there is a reflection that with social media can really start to kill a movie even before it opens.
And this movie is just not strong enough to survive something like that. I mean, I think this one's more coherent than the first one. I think there's even one really great scene in this movie toward the end between Mia Wasikowska and Sacha Baron Cohen. And that, to me, is certainly better than anything in the first film, which I didn't think had one good scene in the entirety of the thing. I really hate the first Alice in Wonderland. But
yeah, your passion for the first one or against it is not really comparable to mine. I just the trifles, just a lot of color and a lot of odd-looking characters, and neither one endeared itself to me. So I can't recommend it either.
Linda Cook from the Quad City Times. Mid-Morning at the Movies is what's going on today on Mid-Morning in the Cities, and we'll continue this conversation and wrap things up next. Mid-Morning in the Cities on Rewind 93.9 is presented by Curves Davenport.
You're listening to Mid-Morning in the Cities on Rewind 93.9 WYEC.
Rewind 93.9 WYEC. Mid-Morning in the Cities. It's Mid-Morning at the Movies. It's myself and Quad City Times film critic Linda Cook talking about the weekend's new movies. We're talking Alice Through the Looking Glass. We already actually recommended X-Men Apocalypse, which we're differing from most other critics in the country, Linda. Not doing particularly well, but we liked it. But
yeah, I don't quite understand what their quarrel is with film.
Not really. Yeah.
That doesn't mean we agree, so there you go.
But we both agree that Alice Through the Looking Glass is not a very good movie. And what especially stands out for me in this is it's just CGI overkill. There's just way too much of it. I mean, everything is CGI. All the characters, Sacha Baron Cohen, I'm sure, was just wearing nothing but a giant green suit, and everything around him was just put on him via computers. And that's just overkill.
It is, and I'm seeing a lot of that starting, I would say, last year into this year, lots and lots of this CGI created stuff. Just because you can do it with CGI doesn't mean you should. And I am a Lewis Carroll fan, incidentally, and read these books, the Alice books, when I grew up, and still love them to this day. And, there's some kind of female empowerment message that's kind of forced into this movie, and it's just not what Lewis Carroll intended. So I was really disappointed, but I wasn't surprised.
And Johnny Depp is truly terrible. I mean, really,
Good grief.
This performance, the first film and now in this one, it's just irksome. Yes, it is irksome. The character is annoying. The character elicited no sympathy for me. I didn't care what happened to any of the characters, except some of the little mechanical devices. I thought they were kind of cool. I'm a steampunk fan, and they appealed to the steampunk aficionado in me. But they're not really main characters, and it's really a mess. Truly it is. There's one more new movie opening this weekend, A Bigger Splash. Neither of us have seen this one yet, but it's a small independent film starring Tilda Swinton. Matthias Schoenaerts is also in this from Game of Thrones, and I've been hearing really good things.
I know, me too. Of course, you have that Game of Thrones element. Some of the worst movies we've seen have Game of Thrones actors.
But
to
be fair, though, Sophie Turner, who plays Jean Grey in X-Men, is also a Game of Thrones star. So
right. And we saw The Witch, which had Game of Thrones stars. So there you go. So that's not necessarily a strict rule of thumb. But I have hopes for this movie, and for people who like independent movies, I like being able to talk about them the day they come out, because you need to run out and see it while it's still playing. Yeah,
because they aren't going to be there very long.
No.
Well, Linda Cook, thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sean. Have a great weekend.
If you missed any part of this interview with Linda Cook and Mid-Morning at the Movies, you can catch it online in a few moments in our Mid-Morning in the Cities podcast at QuadCityDailyNews.com. QuadCityDailyNews.com, powered by local radio. Mid-Morning in the Cities, presented by Curves Davenport on Rewind 93.9.